The day before my graduation trip, the atmosphere at school was so exciting. Everyone was chatting in the group about what snacks to bring, what clothes to wear, and even who secretly brought a game to plan to stay up all night. I, Yanting, an ordinary senior high school student, are not in the mood to participate in these topics. It's not that I'm aloof, but that I have recently heard the ridiculous stories in the campus, what misleading students and what old laboratory blocked, which made my brain full of questions. At 9 o'clock in the evening, after the dormitory was turned off, I turned over and turned and couldn't sleep. So I got up, put on a coat and slipped out. The campus was so quiet that only the road lights emitted dimly yellow light, and occasionally a few sounds of snails could be heard. I don't know why I went to that forbidden area by mistake, the abandoned area in the northwest corner of the campus that was surrounded by the iron network. I heard that there was a laboratory before, but afterwards, it was blocked if something happened, and the teacher didn't dare to mention it. "Hey, Yanting, are you running around here if you don't sleep in the middle of the night?" I was sneaking close to the iron network, and suddenly a sound came from behind, which scared me, almost jumped up. When I turned around, it was Howard. The guy was smiling and holding a bottle of soda in his hand. "Why are you coming out?" I softened my voice and asked without any worries. "It's not that you're sneaking away, afraid that something will happen to you," Howard said with a slight gaze and looked at the iron network. "Don't you really want to go in, right? I heard a ghost here." "Ghost? Who is the treacherous?" "I'm just curious." I was so angry that I was actually a little tired in my heart. "But the arrow is on the string, what if you don't go in?" I pointed to a hole on the iron network. "Look, can I diamond it here, can I come?" Howard hesitated for a moment, and still gritted his teeth and pointed. "Okay, you will be killed if you die." We put our cats on our waists and took the boss to get in through the hole. There was a scent of grass inside, and there was still a musty smell in the air. You could see a broken building far away, squatting there as dark as a monster. My heart beat fast, but my steps did not stop. Howard followed me and muttered in a low voice, "This place is really evil, let's not go too far." After entering the building, it was even darker and I could only rely on the flashlight of my mobile phone to shine on the road. The ground was covered with broken glass and waste paper, and you could see some blurry dung on the wall, writing words like "Don't come in," which made people's backs hush. I was about to say why I might as well go back when I suddenly kicked a hard thing under my foot. When I looked down, I saw it was an old iron box with a glands on the surface. "What's this?" Howard squatted down and poked curiously. "Don't touch him." I stopped him tightly and carefully opened the iron box. There was actually a notebook lying inside. The cover was dark blue, with the edges worn out, and a bunch of symbols that I couldn't understand on it. I flipped through the first page and found it was filled with formulas, and there were some lines like maps, with lost traces and testing place written in small words next to it. "The trough, isn't this a thread from the campus?" Howard's eyes lit up, and he went over to look at it. "Yanting, do you think this was left by the missed student?" I didn't say anything, and my heart seemed to be burned. This notebook is obviously not an ordinary thing, and those formulas and maps definitely contain big secrets. I quickly looked through several pages and found that the last page was still writing a line of words: "The truth is on graduation trip, be cautious." My brain buzzed. Is graduation trip? Isn't tomorrow the day of departure? I have to take this thing away, let's go back and study it slowly. I stuffed my notebook into my jacket and asked Howard to prepare for it. But as soon as he walked out of the broken building, a beam of light suddenly lit up from the distance, shining straight, accompanied by a roar, "Who is there?" "Stop!" Howard and I looked at each other and our calves began to soften. It is the teaching director, Kaiwan. This guy usually looks like a supervisor. Whoever he arrests, and the students go away when they see him. Why did he appear here in the middle of the night? "You two are so cute, you dare to leave the forbidden area." Kaiwan walked over quickly, holding a flashlight in his hand, his face as dark as a bottom. He stared at me, as if he could tell that I was hiding something. "Yanting, Howard, what are you here to fuck me? Stealing something or breaking it?" I felt nervous, but I still had to calm down. On the surface, Director, we are just curious. I heard that there is a story here. When I come and see, nothing is going to work. Not fucked? Then what's bulging in your coat? Kaiwan sneered and reached out to grab my clothes. I retreated and my brain flew quickly. How could I get over it? Howard was also anxious at this time and interrupted, Director, it's nothing. It's just that we brought some snacks, so we hid them because we were afraid we wouldn't be taken away. Snacks? Are I stupid? Remember it? This hat is very big. The fire in my heart also came up. Why don't you ask the green and innocent people? Besides, I discovered this notebook. I may find it. How can I hand it over in a casual manner if I say the truth about the campus? I took a deep breath and decided to take a look. Director, do you have any evidence to say we steal things? This place is forbidden, but we have not ruined anything and have not taken any school things. If you insist that we have any problems, then why do you check and monitor first and see if there's any valuable stuff here before we come in? I said, looking straight into his eyes, and the voice was neither humble nor arrogant. Aside, why are you here in the middle of the night? Why don't you, what are you looking for, right? As soon as this happened, Kaiwan's face changed clearly, and he was panicked in his eyes, but he soon returned to his lofty appearance. He snorted coldly, hard-mouthed, right? Okay, I see how hard you can be. You should be honest tomorrow and don't let me catch the handle. I didn't say anything anymore, but I just thought it was wrong with my low-headed pretending, and the flowers bloomed in my heart. This guy clearly choked by me. He couldn't stand it without evidence, so he could only speak ruthlessly and betray people. Howard secretly gave me a thumbs up next to me, which means awesome, brother. Go back, don't let me see you wandering here again. Kaiwan threw down this sentence and turned away. The light of the flashlight shook in the dark for a few seconds and gradually disappeared. When he walked far away, Howard and I relaxed, patted each other's shoulders, and started to laugh in a low voice. Yanting, you're so slutty just now. Kaiwan's expression, it seems like he's been eating. Howard said with a smile. Don't be proud, this guy will definitely not be willing to give up. I touched the notebook in my jacket, feeling both excited and uneasy. This thing is definitely not simple. We have to focus on research. I may find it very much when I go through my graduation trip. We kept digging back from the hole in the iron network and jogged all the way back to the dormitory. Lying on the bed, my brain still couldn't stop, and my brain was full of me. The missing story, the place where you try, and the saying the truth is traveling through graduation, what does all this mean? Why did Kaiwan react so much? How could he know what he was? I turned around and decided to study the notebook with Howard tomorrow morning. Graduation travel is not a simple fun, and it is difficult to say that the real challenge just begins. Early the next morning, the school exercises were as hot as the new year. The bus stopped in a row, and the students dragged their suitcases and talked about the plans for graduation trip. Howard and I were mixed in the crowd, as if they were just as innocent as they were, and they were always thinking about that notebook in my heart. We made an appointment last night and secretly studied it while we were traveling. After all, the sentence "the truth is in the graduation trip" has been moving around our brains. I always felt that this journey would not be simple. Yanting, have you brought something? Howard came over and asked me in a low voice, his eyes glanced at my backpack. Don't worry, it's stuffed. I patted my backpack and made a low voice, I've gotten on the car and looked for a corner where there are no one. Let's take a look at what the formulas on the first page mean. The destination of our graduation trip is a place called Chingsong Valley on the outskirts of the city. It is said to be a scenic area with mountains and waters, as well as some old buildings, which are quite suitable for dew burning and exploration. After the bus started for about 2 hours, everyone on the bus began to feel sleepy. Some were listening to songs with their headphones, while others were napping directly against the window. Howard and I sat in the back row, pretending to be playing with our mobile phone, actually took out the notebook from our backpack, and began to secretly flip through it. This formula looks like a password at first glance. Howard pointed to a combination of numbers and letters on the first page, and pointed his eyebrows. Are you okay with not being a science student? Can you figure it out? I didn't say anything, so I took out my phone and turned on the calculator, and calculated step by step according to the formula. Those numbers and letters are actually some kind of coordinate conversion. After a few 10 minutes of breaking, I finally figured out a result and compared the map like a map at the back of the notebook. Boat, Howard, this map points to the vicinity of Chingsong Valley. I suppressed my excitement and said in a short voice, look, after this coordinate shift, I landed in a place called Blackstone Garden. The notebook marked a red circle and wrote first trial dot. Blackstone Garden? It's Evil Gate when you hear it. Howard's eyes lit up, but hesitated. We really want to go? What's the forbidden area in Wani? What should we do if Kaiwan arrests us? What are you afraid of? I'm here. If you don't go and check out this notebook, it's useless. I gritted my teeth and made up my mind. When everyone goes to bed tonight, we'll sneak up and explore the situation. Howard was a little bit, although he didn't say it, but he could tell that he was looking forward to it. The first day of the graduation trip is mainly arranged for check-in and free activities, and there is also a bonfire party in the evening. When we arrived in Chingsong Valley, it was already afternoon. The tour guide took us into an exposed camping base, and the tents were set up. The environment was quite good, just a little distance from the Blackstone Garden. I asked the tour guide specifically and learned that the park was a deserted old place in the area, and no one had lived there for a long time and no one was there usually. Yanting, how did you go tonight? There is no place in front of the village and no shop behind the village. Howard helped to set up a tent and asked in a low voice. Don't the tour guide say there is a place to rent a bicycle? We borrowed 2 buses and set out in the middle of the night to come back to the fastest, so no one should have discovered it. I had already thought about the plan, and my mind had already started to calculate the route. During the bonfire party at night, everyone had a lot of fun. The skewers were full of fragrance, and some classmates sang on guitars, and the atmosphere was so good. Howard and I were also following each other on the surface, but actually kept taking a sneak peek at the time. Finally, we waited until after 11 o'clock and the venue would be over in the evening. Everyone continued to go back to the tent to sleep. We found an excuse, sneaked to the rental car, borrowed 2 bicycles, and took advantage of the night to head straight to the Blackstone Garden. The night road in Chingsong Valley is not easy to walk on. The road is full of gravel and soil slopes. When the flashlight shines, you can only see a few meters ahead. Howard and I were cautious, and occasionally we could hear a few strange birds coming from far away, and the atmosphere was extremely strange. After about half an hour of riding, I finally saw a black structure silhouette far away, with a lock hanging on the broken iron door, and a block sign standing beside it, writing danger, no entry. That's it. I stopped the car, wiped my sweat, took out my phone and recorded the local map according to the pen. Go in and see what threads should be. The iron door was locked, but there was a gap in the surrounding wall next to it, so I could barely get through it. We hid the car in the grass and entered the garden with our waists. It was even more deserted than I thought. The grass grew faster than I could in my knees. There was a musty smell in the air. The main building far away was pitch black and the windows were broken, like an empty shell. Yanting, what can I really have a trick here? Howard muttered in a low voice, taking a flashlight everywhere. How do I feel like a haunted house? Don't scare yourself, the notebook says. This is the first test, there must be a mystery. I was so angry that I felt a little hairy in my heart, but I still walked forward with my head hard. We entered the main building, covered in dust, and our feet squeaked on the floor. The red circle on the notebook should be located on the 2nd floor. We climbed up the old stairs and found that there was a large hall on the 2nd floor, with an old iron box in the center, with a string of numbers engraved on the box and a turntable lock. Is this a matter of trouble? Howard's eyes lit up and he went over to study. Look, these numbers seem to be true to the formula in the notebook. I flipped the notebook tightly, substituted the numbers into the calculation according to the formula on the first page, and obtained a 4-digit password. I took a deep breath, turned the turntable on the iron box, entered the password, and heard a click sound, and the box actually opened. There is a yellow paper inside, which reads, "The first stop for the missing person, the secret of the black stone, the road to the lower level is behind the hidden door. Be careful of the guardian. Discovered? Leading to the lower level?" Howard finished reading the paper and asked with his face, "What does it mean? Who is the guardian?" "Don't worry, look for the secret door first." I looked around and found a carpet in the corner of the hall, which looked not very opposite. When I lifted it up, I found that there was indeed a wooden board entrance, and below was a staircase leading to the underground. Bang, Yanting, there is really a basement here. Howard was so excited, but he was a little hesitant. "Can you go down? What should I do if there is any danger? It's all here, how can I know the truth if I can't go down?" I gritted my teeth and walked down first with the flashlight. The basement is darker, the air is so wet, the walls are full of moss, and you can still hear the sound of dripping water from afar. We walked a few steps and suddenly heard a light sound coming from behind, as if something was closing. "What sound?" Howard turned his head suddenly, and the flashlight shook. I felt nervous in my heart, and ran back and took a look. The entrance to the wooden board that had just entered was closed at some point. There was a big lock on it, which could not be opened at all. "No, someone follows us," I said in a low voice. My heartbeat accelerated, and my brain was flying. No one else can do this except Kaiwan. This guy must have suspected us early in the morning, saying that he might have come from the exposed place. Now he deliberately traps us here, saying that it is an accident, no one can prove it. Yanting, what should I do? There is no signal on the phone here, and no one can hear it even if I shout it. Howard was so anxious that he started to kick the wooden board hard, but it was useless at all. "Don't panic, the notebook says be careful guardian. The guardian may be Kaiwan or the connection here." I forced myself to calm down, flipped through the notebook, and found that there was a small formula on the second page, and the "how to escape" was written next to it. I followed the calculations closely and came up with a direction and steps pointing to a wall deep in the basement. "Howard, come with me, there should be an exit here." I pulled him to the wall, and sure enough, I found an inconspicuous hole in the wall, and there was a string of symbols engraved next to it, which was exactly in line with the one on the notebook. I followed the formula instructions and moved a stone block next to the small hole, and only heard the sound of rowing, and the wall actually moved open, revealing a narrow passage, and the moonlight could be seen outside. "Awesome, Yanting. How did you calculate it?" Howard looked at him and hurriedly walked into the passage with me. But we just crawled out, and before we could relax our breath, we heard the sound of walking behind us, which was rapid and heavy. When he turned around, Kaiwan's heavy face appeared at the entrance of the basement, holding a stick in his hand, his eyes as cold as if he wanted to eat people. "You too, you really don't want toast to eat and drink?" Kaiwan gritted his teeth and said in a low voice. "I warned you not to worry about things. Now that I'm fine, I'll ask for trouble. Director, you followed us all the way back in the middle of the night and locked the door. What does it mean?" I said deliberately, thinking about how to delay time, and glanced at the bicycle beside me. "Are you afraid that we will find any secret, right?" "Secret? Humph, little kid, miss it." Kaiwan sneered, lifted the iron stick and approached us. "I think you were caught stealing something, and you still dare to speak stubbornly now." Howard and I looked at each other, and without saying a word, they turned around and ran away, rushed into the grass line and ran out of the car, and rushed to the car desperately. Kaiwan chased after us for a few steps, and saw that we were fast and shouted with anger, "Yanting, you can't escape. This is not over." We were storming all the way, and when we finally returned to the open camp, it was almost 2 o'clock in the morning and our legs were almost gone. Howard and I hid in the tent, gasping for breath, feeling palpitations, but we couldn't help laughing. "Yanting, how did you unlock the machine just now? It's so amazing." Howard wiped his sweat and gave me a thumbs up, and Kaiwan's expression, "Ha, you're so angry. Don't be proud, this guy will definitely not let us go." I gasped and took out the paper from my backpack. But it wasn't in vain this time. the missing person's ropes and the way to the lower level. What do these words mean? And the guardians are probably Kaiwan. What secrets does this guy hide? Howard was a little bit headed, and his eyes became serious. Ting, we have to grasp it carefully, otherwise Kaiwan might even be a thug. I looked down at the paper, my heart was filled with twists and turns. Blackstone Garden is just the first try, so what else will be there in the future? What is the truth about the missing person? Why is Kaiwan so tight that he even spared no time to set up his own trap? All of this is like a huge mist, making people fall deeper and deeper. I will continue to study the notebook tomorrow, and the second trial may be near Chingsong Valley. I stuffed the paper into my backpack, lay down and closed my eyes. Go to sleep, there is still a tough battle to fight in the back. Howard whispered and calmed down in the tent, but I knew that we were not really asleep in our hearts. The graduation trip has just begun, and the real challenge may still be at the forefront. The next morning, the sun was exposed and the air was filled with a hint of morning. Howard and I climbed out of the tent, with 2 dark circles on our eyes. Last night's shocking night made us not sleep well. The students at the campsite have already started to work, some are cooking breakfast, some are packing up and preparing for today's hiking activities. But as soon as we walked out of the tent, we felt that the atmosphere around us was a little uneven. Many people secretly glanced at us, their eyes full of curiosity and gossip. Yanting, Howard, what did you fuck you last night? Did you hear that you were caught? Shaoli, a classmate who was still familiar with us, came over and asked in a short voice, and wrote a warm expression on his face. What's caught? Don't say it's okay. I held my hand, putting it lightly, and my heart skipped a beat. It seems that what happened last night has been revealed. It is probably because of Kaiwan's guy who deliberately lets out his voice and wants to put pressure on us. As expected, before Howard and I found a place to have breakfast, there was a rapid sound of footsteps far away, accompanied by the familiar and painful cold snorting sound. Kaiwan was wearing a well-spoken sportswear, holding a small notebook in his hand, his face as dark as a bottom, and he walked straight to us with a few teachers who were traveling around. The classmates at the campsite calmed down in an instant, and all stopped what was happening, staring at this place, as if waiting for a big scene. Yanting, Howard, you too, stand up. Kaiwan's voice was so loud that it could be heard at the entire camp, carrying unquestionable majesty. I left the camp without authorization in the middle of the night last night, violating the travel regulations. Do you know how big it is? Where did you go? Did you go to another place you shouldn't go? My heart sank. This guy is indeed looking for trouble, and it is still difficult for everyone to understand that we will not be able to get out of the Taiwan Strait. Howard muttered in a low voice, Yanting, this goods were there too last night, why are you embarrassed to turn things around? Don't worry, we have the right to travel all over the world. I replied in a low voice, then raised my head and looked at Kaiwan, and an innocent expression appeared on my face. Director, you said we left in the middle of the night, but what are the evidence? Besides, there is no way to die in the travel regulations to let the tent go out at night, right? We just can't sleep, so why did we make a walk? Walk? Humph, are you stupid? Kaiwan sneered, his eyes full of mockery. Someone saw you riding to the Blackstone Garden with his eyes. That place is a dangerous area. Who would allow you to go? You dare to make a cunning statement. I think you want to cancel your travel qualifications directly and go back to write a review. As soon as this came out, Lima, a classmate around him, exploded and comments came one after another. Some people say in a novel, is Blackstone Garden a ghost? They are so big, while others say, it's too ruthless to cancel the qualification, this is the first time you go to the graduation trip. The atmosphere became more and more intense, and Kaiwan's attitude was even more aggressive, and he was clear that he wanted to kill the chicken to warn the monkey. I glanced at Howard. Although this guy was usually rushing, he didn't say anything. He just clenched his fists and his eyes were full of fire. I also felt a sense of anxiety in my heart. It was him who locked the basement door last night and wanted to trap us to death. Now, he turned around and turned against us. What are we bullying? I took a deep breath and decided not to put it on, so I just stood up with him. Director, you said someone saw us going to Blackstone Garden. Who is this person? Why didn't you stand up and get the right quality? I deliberately raised my voice so that my classmates around me could hear it clearly. Aside, we did go there last night, but how did you know so clearly? You shouldn't, you were on the scene, right? Otherwise, why would you say it at all times? As soon as this happened, the whole scene calmed down in an instant, and everyone's eyes were focused on Kaiwan. His face froze clearly, his eyes twitched, but he still looked firm and snorted coldly, "Yanting, don't talk nonsense. How could I go to that place in the middle of the night? I heard the tour report before I knew you were illegal." Travel report? Which tour guide? I asked him to ask. I didn't give him a chance to breathe, so I continued to chase him. At the same time, I took out my phone from my backpack and clicked a short audio recorded last night. Director, we did encounter something in Black Rock Park last night. Someone locked the entrance to the basement, almost impossible to come out. I have a record here. You hear it. Does this sound a little familiar? I clicked on the playback, and although the sound was not very good, I could still hear the sentence "You can't escape, this is not finished" clearly. Although he was not photographed, the sound was recognized by all the students in the school, and it was definitely him. After listening to the classmates, their eyes changed completely. Some people couldn't help but make a sound in the groove, and the discussion became even louder. Is this really the director's voice? He was there in the middle of the night? What's the matter? Kaiwan's face was dark, and the veins on the head were almost bursting out. It was obvious that I didn't expect that I would keep this move. He gritted his teeth and said, "This sound is fake. Yanting, you are a slander teacher, you are a big fool. I think you don't want to graduate from school anymore." Fake it? Director, don't rush to put your hat on it. I sneered, took out the paper I took from the basement from my backpack last night and put it on it to everyone. This is what we found in the basement of the park. It reads the first stop for the missed person and also mentions the guard. Someone locked the door last night and wanted to trap us in death. Do you want to explain this? Or is it that guardian? The whole scene exploded at all this time. The discussions between classmates were like waves. Kaiwan stood there, his face turned blue and white, and his lips were trembling for a while. It was obvious that I was caught off guard by this wave of operations. Several teachers beside him also talked to each other. No one dared to speak up, but after all, this was too remote for anyone to go through this situation. Yanting, you are talking nonsense. Kaiwan finally put on a word, but his voice clearly showed insufficient sound. What can this paper prove? Maybe it was you who wrote it yourself. Editor? Then why don't you explain why you appeared in the forbidden area in the middle of the night and threatened us? I continued to go back without any hesitation. Director, it's true that we are students, but we are not soft persimmons that can be controlled by others. If you don't do anything wrong, how could you be so anxious? Or, what do you know the inside story of the missing person? This sentence was like a heavy blowout, and Kaiwan finally panicked in his eyes, but he still refused to admit it. He threw the sentence "I will report to the principal, you can wait and see the matter," and then turned away with his face black, leaving a group of students who were watching the hottest, still talking about private words. At this time, Howard finally couldn't help but patted my shoulder and laughed. Yanting, it's awesome. You just said a few words, and you simply slammed Kaiwan's face. Looking at his expression, you're so angry that you're almost vomiting blood. Don't be happy too early, this guy will definitely not be good at ease. I said this, and I felt very happy. When the public exposed his little action, they also made it so happy that they couldn't say anything. The students around us looked at us with a change in their eyes. Some gave thumbs up, and some even came over to ask the West. Although it was not clear, it clearly seemed that our operation was explosive. Yanting, have you really found the trace of the missing person? Shaoli rushed over again, his eyes lit up like a light. Is that true? What's the secret in the school? Don't guess, I'm still unclear now. I held my hand and said nothing more, and I felt more and more that this was not simple in my heart. Kaiwan's attitude is too abnormal. What is hidden behind these words? The group of the notebook has not been opened yet. Howard and I have to seize the time and cannot let him find another opportunity to attack. After breakfast, today's activity was hiking and climbing. The tour guide took us to the deep Chingsong Valley. The scenery along the way was good, but my mind was not at all. The same is true for Howard, and he often discusses last night's papers and notebooks with me, and guesses where the next trial will be. Just as we climbed halfway up the mountain and were about to rest, my cell phone suddenly shook and received a text message from a strange number. Yanting, I am a dreamer, the library. Regarding the notebook in your hand, I have something to tell you, don't tell others, and see it at the top of the mountain viewing platform at 4 p.m. I was stunned for a moment. Dream? Is it the bookstore that is always peaceful and quiet administrator sister? She doesn't talk much, but every time I go to borrow books, she is very enthusiastic and always talks to me about gossip in the campus. How could she know about the notebook? Could she also tell the campus news? I had a lot of questions in my heart, but I just told me that this person should not be an enemy and might be able to help. Howard, I have something to do in the afternoon. Please help me cover up. I told him in a short voice that I did not mention the dream, but I actually sent a text message to tell others, and I had to figure out what she wanted first. Okay, you can do whatever you want, I'll help you with it. Howard patted his chest and replied without asking much. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the hiking activities were over and everyone was scattering their free activities. I found an excuse to take photos and sneak to the top of the mountain viewing platform. The place is quite erratic, and there are no people coming here usually. The wind is blowing, and the scenery of the valley far away is endless. When I arrived, the dream was already waiting there, wearing a simple sports outfit. His hair was slim, and he held a small notebook in his hand. It looked no different from what he usually did in the library. Yanting, you're here. She saw me, pointing the head, calm but with a real taste. I know you have a special notebook on your hand, writing formulas and maps, right? I was surprised, but on the surface I didn't show it, but I just pointed out. How do you know? What does this have to do with the library? Dream did not answer directly, but took out a paper from the notebook in my hand and sent it to me. This is based on some old files in the library, and I will read part of your notebook. Look, it should be helpful to you. I took the paper and looked down. There were a bunch of notes on it, mentioning the old experiment room, 3 aspects of trial and the secret of the founder. The most important thing is that there is a line of words that read, the formula in the notebook points to the core of the campus's speech. The failure is not an accident, but a failure price. The old experiment room is the starting point, and the graduation trip is the end point. Be careful of the interference of the guardian. After watching it, my heartbeat was a lot faster. Is the failure the price to try to fail? What is the starting point of the old experiment room? What does this mean? What secrets do you have to tell the campus to the school's founder? I looked up at the dream and asked, how do you know these? Also, who is the guardian? Is Kai one? The dream was shaking, with a little confused look on his face. I can only tell you so many times that the guardian is not necessarily a person, but it may also be a mechanism to protect the secrets he has told from being touched by outsiders. Yanting, I help you because I believe you can unlock this group, but you must be careful. Kaiwan is just a superficial obstacle, and the real danger is still behind. Real danger? What does it mean? I chased me, but the dream didn't say much, just slammed me to protect my notebook, then turned down the mountain, leaving me alone standing on the viewing platform and stunned. I looked down at the paper in my hand, and felt like I had a fire in my heart, excited and uneasy. The group of books is getting bigger and bigger, with missing persons, testers, and old experiment rooms. These threads are linked together, pointing to an amazing truth. Kaiwan is just a small character, and there are even bigger secrets waiting for me to dig. Yanting, what are you doing? The tour guide is calling for a gathering. When Howard came from far away, I tightly stuffed the paper into my pocket and ran down the mountain. I had already made up my mind and went back to study these new ropes with Howard. Back at the camp, it was already dark and everyone started preparing for dinner. Howard and I found a corner, pretending to chat, and actually secretly discussing the information provided by the dream. After hearing this, Howard's eyes widened. "Boke, Yanting, this matter is getting worse and worse. Is the missed person a price to try to fail? Then let's continue to check, will it be? Don't scare yourself. We have a notebook and some explanations, which can always be turned into a barbarity." I comforted him, but I was not sure about it, but now it is impossible to stop. I said that the old experiment room is the starting point. We have to go back to school and check the place and see what the traces are there. Okay, I've been chasing with you anyway, so I'll give it my best. Howard grinned. Although he said it hard, his eyes were still a little worried. After dinner, the campground returned to its popularity, and everyone chatted around the bonfire, but Howard and I were completely out of focus. Kaiwan didn't come to find fault again this day, but his eyes kept coming over and over again, making people feel so sank. I know that this is not over, and he is definitely waiting for the opportunity to counterattack. I looked down at the notebook in my backpack, and my heart was filled with repetitions. The graduation trip has not ended yet. Where is the second link to the trial? What is the secret of the old experiment room? Can the truth about the missing person really be revealed by us? These questions are like a group of terrible problems, making people more addicted to it the more they think about it. Howard, I will find an opportunity to study the notebook tomorrow. The second thing I said may be in Chingsong Valley. I said in a short voice, glanced at the valley far away, and felt that there were more unknowns hidden in that darkness. Howard was a little bit too much and didn't say anything, but we all know that once we go on this path, we can't go back. On the third day of the graduation trip, the morning in Chingsong Valley was particularly peaceful. The sun was passing through the trees and forests on the ground, and the classmates in the camp were still sipping on the bed or eating breakfast slowly. Howard and I had already woken up. Last night, we turned over and over the paper we studied the dream. The above-mentioned sentence, "the old experiment room is the starting point," has been typing in our brains. Although Chingsong Valley is a scenic area, I heard that there is indeed a deserted research institute site nearby. I said that I had a cooperative relationship with our school a few decades ago, but it was later closed due to some accidents. Yanting, do you really think that the institute has something to do with the old experiment room? Howard gnawed the bread and asked me in a small voice. His eyes still glanced at the distance from time to time, for fear that someone would hear it secretly. It's 80% impossible to get rid of the relationship. I looked down at the mobile phone map, which marked an approximate location on it. It was about 5 kilometers away from the site and could be reached in half an hour by riding. The dream said that the old experiment room is the starting point, and the notebook also mentioned the 3 test links. Yesterday's black stone garden was the first link, and today this place may be the second link. What are you waiting for? Let's take a closer look while we are free today. Howard came to the rescue as soon as he heard this, and Lima stuffed the bread into his mouth, patted his hands and prepared to come out. I was looking forward to it, but I was a little uneasy. Although Kaiwan has not been looking for trouble for the past 2 days, his eyes always swept over, and he always felt that he was holding his ultimate move. We have to act quickly and can't let him take the lead. At 10 o'clock in the morning, the tour guide announced that today is free time, and everyone can stroll around the scenery of Chingsong Valley or participate in some small games. Howard and I made an excuse to take pictures of the scenery, then sneaked to the rental car, borrowed 2 more bicycles, and headed towards the institute address marked on the map. This road is more difficult than when I went to Blackstone Park. It was all uphill and gravel roads, which made us sweat a lot. Half an hour later, I finally saw a deserted building group far away. The wall had long collapsed, with grass inside, and several dilapidated buildings that looked like they had been abandoned for decades. There was a smell of old iron lens in the air, and you could still hear the strange sound of the wind blowing through the ruins from a distance, and the atmosphere was extremely strange. Yanting, this place is even more evil than the Blackstone Garden. Howard stopped the car and wiped his sweat. His voice was reduced a little. Are you sure there is a threat inside? What should I do if there is another pit? What are you afraid of? The notebook and dream information point here. Let's go in and take a look before talking. My mouth was hard, and my heart was actually pounding, but the arrow was on the string. How could I know the truth if I didn't go in? I took out my notebook from my backpack, turned to the formula on the second page, and pointed to a larger building in the center of the building group according to the mark on the map, and wrote core area, second trial next to it in small words. We hid our bicycles in the grass and approached the building with our waists. The door had already been closed, and it opened with a slight push. It was dark inside, covered with broken glass and waste paper. You could also see some faded words on the wall, writing the word safety first. I shined the road with my mobile phone and flashlight, and Howard followed behind me, muttering in a low voice, "This place looks like a horror scene no matter how hard it looks, let's not go too deep." Don't scare yourself. The notebook has marked the location and should be in the basement. I said one side, looking for the entrances around the corner, and finally found a hole covered by an iron plate in the corner of the hall. There were also a string of numbers engraved next to it, which corresponds to the formula in the notebook. I was delighted, and squatted down to study, and found that there was a small lock hole on the iron plate, which should have been opened with a password. Howard, help me shine in the light, I will try to unblock. I took out my pen, started to calculate according to the formula of the notebook, and got a 6-digit password, and then entered it carefully, and with a click sound, the iron plate actually opened, revealing a staircase leading to the underground, which was pitch black below, and there was a cold wind blowing up. Awesome, Yanting, it's unwilling again. Howard looked admiring, but hesitated. Can you go down? It doesn't look like a good place below. It's all here, it's useless if I can't go down. I gritted my teeth and walked down the first place. Howard hesitated for a moment and followed. The basement is colder than above, the walls are covered with moss and there is water on the ground, which makes it sticky when you step on it. When the flashlight shone, you can see several old iron cabinets far away, and there were some broken documents scattered beside them, and the papers were all yellow. Yanting, look at this. Howard suddenly called me in a low voice, pointed to an iron cabinet with a faded label posted on it, and wrote Experience Record Message Plan. My heart beat faster and I walked over and pulled the cabinet hard. There were actually a bunch of old files inside, with 2 words confidential written on the cover, and the school emblem pattern of our school. I flipped through one copy and found all of them. I mentioned psychological limit test and test selection and a bunch of students' names, with passing and failed. Behind the failed names, I wrote missing processing. I felt my skin numb when I saw it. Could it be that these missed students were really dealt with because of a failure in the trial? Turning down further, there are several pages that mention a creator plan, which says that the school founder helped the institute that year, with the purpose of selecting the strongest to complete a secret task. Bing, Yanting, this is too distorted. Howard's face turned pale after watching it. What's the point of thinking? Do you think of a guinea pig? What do you think of a founder? Don't worry, there are even more explosive. I turned to the last page and found a list of Guardian list listed on it, and Q and Lin was written on the top. There was also a comment next to it, responsible for the supervisor and ensure that the secrets are not leaked. I was shocked. Sure enough, Q is the Guardian. He knew all the inside story, and maybe even the direct participants. This file has to be taken away, it's definitely a big proof. I rushed to stuff the file into my backpack and asked Howard to continue searching. Look at what else is there, don't miss the trace. But we just turned open another iron cabinet and prepared to look for it again. A sudden burst of stomping sound came from outside, accompanied by a low roar. Who is there? Stop and don't move. Howard and I looked at each other, and my heart sank. It was Kaiwan. Why is this guy coming again? Can he keep following us? Yanting, what should I do? Do I run away? Howard was so anxious that he was sweating and couldn't even hold the flashlight. What are you running? There is only one exit here, and you can't escape. I forced myself to calm down, my brain flew quickly, and my eyes glanced at the notebook in my backpack. There is a formula on the last page, and I wrote emergency prevention next to it. I haven't had time to study it yet. Now it may be a life-saving straw. Howren, help me delay time, I'll try this formula. I said in a low voice, quickly flipped the notebook and started calculating. The sound of the steps outside was getting closer and closer, and Kaiwan's voice became clearer and clearer. Yanting, Howren, I know it was you. Don't slap again, hand over the things, otherwise you will suffer the consequences. He was following several people, and he heard at least 3 or 4 sounds, and he should have his subordinates or security guards. My heart tightened and I couldn't hold the pen in my hand, but I still gritted my teeth and calculated. Howren also took the initiative to go out at this time, rushed to the entrance of the basement, moved a few broken iron buckets to block the road, and shouted loudly, "Director, why did you appear in the middle of the night? You might as well want to lock the door again, right? We have classmates who know that we are here, and you can't get rid of the relationship if you lose someone. Stop talking, boy, do you sneak into the forbidden area and dare to speak stubbornly?" Kaiwan sneered and rushed down with a man directly. The iron bucket was kicked open, making a huge sound. His flashlight shone straight through, and I was afraid of being low-headed. In fact, I had calculated the last formula and came up with an operation sequence, pointing to a small inconspicuous panel at the corner of the basement wall with several buttons on it. That's it. I was happy in my heart. While Kevin was not completely approaching, I ran over quickly and pressed the button according to the formula. I only heard the sound of a iron column suddenly fell from the top of the basement, which separated the few subordinates who Kevin brought to him on the other side, smashing them to scream and unable to move. A stream of smoke came out from behind the iron sieve column, which should be some kind of anti-warming machine. They were so worried that they couldn't catch up with them. "Yanting, it's awesome. What's the matter? How did you do it?" Howren was stunned and hurried over to help me hold my backpack. The emergency prevention in the notebook is probably the safety mechanism of the laboratory that year. I gasped and felt very happy. This wave directly trapped Kaiwan's subordinates and challenged us to escape time. But Kaiwan himself was not trapped. He stood beside the iron stalk, his face was blue, his eyes were as if he wanted to eat people, and he was holding a crowbar in his hand, and he certainly didn't plan to let us go. "You two are really looking for death." Kaiwan gritted his teeth, lifted his crowbar and approached us. "I see where you can go and hand over the file, otherwise don't blame me for being rude." "Director, what are you anxious about? What's in the file that makes you so tight? It won't be related to the missed students, right?" I said deliberately, glanced at the stairs beside me, and thought about how to remove them. "I have a list here, which reads Guardian Kevin Lin. Do you want to explain, what is this guardian? And those who have missed students, have you tried to deal with the failure of the accident?" As soon as this happened, Kaiwan's face changed instantly, and there was a panic flash in his eyes, but he was soon caught by anger. He snorted coldly, "Yanting, don't talk nonsense. You have compiled all guardians and all kinds of tests by yourself. I think you want to taint the teacher and find an excuse to escape. Edited? Then why don't you let everyone take a look at this file?" I took out the list from my backpack and raised it high, with a louder voice. The white paper and black text on it, and the school badge, are written clearly. The missed students are the price of the trial failure. The guardian is responsible for supervisors. You are one of them. Director, how dare you say this has nothing to do with you? Kaiwan was so speechless by me that the blue veins on his face were almost bursting out. It was obvious that I would throw the certificate directly on his face. The trapped subordinates behind him also heard clearly at this time. Although they were so uncomfortable with smoke, their eyes changed and they began to speak privately, as if they had doubts about Kaiwan. "Yanting, you, shut your mouth." Kaiwan finally couldn't help it, and raised his crowbar and rushed towards me. His voice was full of anger. "I think you are alive. Howren, run!" I shouted, pulled Howren toward the stairs. Although Kaiwan was angry, he was old and not as fast as us. We walked up the stairs in a few steps, rushed out of the basement, ran outside the grassland and flew out of the car, and rushed out of the car, desperately pedaling. Kaiwan chased after a few steps behind and shouted with anger, "You can't escape. I will make you pay for this." We were storming all the way, and when we returned to the camp, it was almost noon, our legs were almost gone, and our sweat was wet. Howard and I hid in the tent, gasping for breath, feeling palpitations, but we couldn't help laughing. "Yanting, you just said a few words," which made Kaiwan vomit blood. Howard wiped his sweat and gave me a thumbs up. "There is that connection, it's absolutely true. Don't be happy too early, this guy will definitely not be willing to rest." I gasped, took out the file from my backpack, looked through it carefully, and my heart became more and more shocked. These files not only prove that Kaiwan is related to the missed incident, but also mention the founder's secret plan, saying that the ultimate goal of the trial is to choose a successor to complete a certain unfinished experiment, and even to the school's future. "Howard, this is even bigger than we think," I said in a low voice, staring at the words on the file. "Missing students are just the tip of the iceberg, and the founder's plan is the core. Kaiwan is just an executor, and there may be a bigger hand behind him. What should I do? Let's continue to investigate. Will we take care of myself?" Although Howard asked, his eyes were still flashing, and he didn't want to stop. "It's all here, it's not our style to stop." I gritted my teeth and stuffed the file back into my backpack. The third thing should be the last thing. The notebook says that graduation trip is the end, so we have to focus on unraveling the remaining group and dig out the truth in the end. Howard was a little bit too much and didn't say anything, but we all knew in our hearts that the more we walked, the more dangerous this road was, but the more we walked, the more we were getting more and more enjoyable it. Unveiling the true face of Kaiwan is just the beginning, and the real challenge is still at the forefront. I looked down at my backpack, my heart revolved thousands of times. What exactly is the plan of the founder? What is the final whereabouts of the lost student? These problems are like a group of mists, making people fall deeper and deeper. Howard, rest today and study the notebook in the evening. The third thing is probably at the last day of Chingsong Valley, I said in a short voice, and my eyes glanced at the tent outside the tent, and Kaiwan's figure appeared again. Although it was far apart, the cold eyes still made people feel hairy. I know that the amount of the game is not over, but with these evidences, Howard and I have taken the initiative. The truth is getting closer and closer to us. After returning to the camp, Howard and I didn't have time to catch our breath, and we felt that the atmosphere around us was not very antagonistic. The originally popular Chingsong Valley Do campground will be a little quiet and sensible. The classmates gathered together in 3 talking privately, and glanced at us from time to time, with a little curiosity and a little remoteness. Several of the guys who usually have good relationships with us are also wearing their heads down and don't see us, as if they are deliberately avoiding something troublesome. "Yanting, what's going on? Why are you looking at us like looking at monsters?" Howard muttered in a low voice. His eyebrows were so hard that he could get the thorns to death, and he was holding a copy of the file that he had just gotten back from the Waste Institute. "It's probably Kaiwan's trick," I sneered, and I had a premonition in my heart. This guy was definitely unwilling to accept it when he chased us from the institute and didn't catch up. He probably started to let go of his voice and dirt the water when he came back. I patted my backpack, and I had those iron certificates, the test records of missing students, the list of guardians, and the lines of the founder's plan. If these things were open, I could drink them for a while. Sure enough, before we could get to the pennant area, a rapid sound of footsteps came from afar, accompanied by Kaiwan's familiar and painful cold snorting sound. He was wearing erect sportswear, holding a small trumpet in his hand, his face was as dark as a bottom, and he walked towards us with a few teachers and guides who were traveling around. The classmates at the campsite calmed down in an instant, and all stopped what was happening, staring at this place, as if waiting for a big scene. "Yanting, Howard, you too, stand up." Kaiwan's voice was amplified through the small speaker, which made it possible to be heard in the entire camp, with unquestionable majesty. "I have warned you a long time ago not to cause trouble for me, but what about you? Not only are you good at since leaving the business, I have gone to the prohibited area to break the damage and even steal important items. I still want to wear it without anybody now. I tell you that this behavior has seriously violated the school rules. I will report to the president, cancel your graduation qualifications, and remember that it will be overdoubted. As soon as this came out, the whole scene exploded. The students' opinions came over like a wave. Some people said in a novel steal something really fake, and some people said in a private saying it's too ruthless to cancel the qualification for graduation. This is the last trip. The atmosphere became more and more intense, and Kaiwen's attitude was even more aggressive. He knew that he would kill us and kill us to warn the monkey. My heart sank. As expected, this guy started to act first, spreading rumors to convict us as the culprit of destroying the school order. He probably wanted to use the argument to kill us and then fool the evidence. Howard was also anxious at this time, clenched his fists tightly and whispered, "Yanting, this goods are too worthy of face. It's obvious that he has a problem himself, so he's making a comeback now. What should he do?" "Don't worry, we have evidence. What are we afraid of?" I replied in a low voice, raised my head and looked straight at Kaiwen, and a calm expression appeared on my face. Although the fire was rising in my heart, it would not be a problem. If it was a problem, it would hit him. I took a deep breath, stood in front of the crowd, and whispered, "Director, you said we were stealing things and ruining things, but what evidence do you have? Or do you want to convict us just by saying a few words? Besides, when is the school stipulated that we can't go to the prohibited area when we go to the graduation trip? You are too big to hold this hat. Certificate? Humph, are you still embarrassed to prove it?" Kaiwen sneered, his eyes full of mockery. "Someone saw you riding to the Wasteland Institute, which is a dangerous area, and it has been explicitly prohibited from entering. You are going to be illegal, and you dare to make a cunning decision? I think you stole something and want to pay now." As soon as this came out, the surrounding classmates' discussions on the lecture mahjong became even more damaging, and their eyes were all focused on Kaiwen. His face froze clearly, his eyes twitched, but he still looked firm and snorted coldly, "Howard, don't talk nonsense. How could I go to that place in the middle of the night? I heard the tour report before I knew you were wrong. Let's say, lock the door? Joke, I think you are writing the story to punish me. Editor story? Director, don't be in a hurry to put on your hat." I sneered, took out my phone from my backpack, clicked a short audio recorded last night, and picked it up for everyone to see. "Last night, we encountered something in the institute. Someone locked the entrance to the basement, almost impossible to come out. I have a record here, you hear it. Is this sound a little familiar?" I clicked on the playback, and although the sound was not very good, I could still hear the sentence, "You can't escape, this is not finished," clearly. Although he was not photographed, the sound was recognized by all the students in the school, and it was definitely him. After listening to the classmates, their eyes changed completely. Some people couldn't help but make a sound in the groove, and the discussion became even louder. Is this really the director's voice? He was there in the middle of the night? What's the matter?" Kaiwen's face was dark, and the veins on the head were almost bursting out. It was obvious that I didn't expect that I would keep this move. He gritted his teeth and said, "This sound is fake. Yanting, you are a slander teacher, you are a big fool. I think you don't want to graduate from school anymore. Fake it? Then why don't you explain why you appeared in the forbidden area in the middle of the night and threatened us?" I did not retreat and continued to go back. At the same time, I took out the copy of the file I took from the institute from my backpack and lifted it up high. "Look at it, this is the file we found in the basement of the institute, which was clearly written on it, mentioning the missing plan, psychological limit test, and there is also a list of missed students, and those who fail are marked missing handling. The most important thing is that there is also a list of guardians, and your name is listed, and you write responsible for the supervision of the trial and supervision to ensure that the secret is not leaked. Do you want to explain it? What does this mean?" The whole scene exploded at all this time. The classmates' discussion sounded like hailu. Kaiwen stood there, his face turned blue and white, and his lips trembled for a while. He was obviously caught off guard by my operation. Several teachers beside him also talked to each other. No one dared to speak up, but after all, this was too remote for anyone to go through this situation. Yanting, you are talking nonsense. Kaiwan finally put on a word, but his voice clearly showed insufficient background. What can this file prove? Maybe it was you who wrote it yourself. Besides, all missed plans and guardians are all nonsense discussions. Edited? Director, the file contains the school badge, the date and signature of that year. You said this is fake, so do you dare to let everyone pass it on? I smiled coldly and sent the file to several classmates next to me for them to see it themselves. As soon as the file was published, the discussion became even louder. Someone directly read the sound, Miss Sue processing? This is too scary. The list of guardians really has the name of Kaiwan. Kaiwan's face could no longer be described as difficult to describe. He seemed to have eaten shit, and his eyes were full of panic and anger. He wanted to get over the file, but was trapped by several classmates. After all, everyone wanted to know the truth, and no one was willing to let him fool him. Director, what are you anxious about? If there is no ghost in your heart, why don't you let everyone see? I said deliberately, staring at him with my eyes straight at him. In the past few years, the sayings of the missed students have been circulating in the campus. Everyone thinks they are ghosts, but the file is clearly written. This is the price of the failure of the trial. As a guardian, you are responsible for supervising the trial. You have no responsibility for these missed students? Or do you say that you have known the truth for a long time, but you have been ignoring us, and even hesitating to attack us? This sentence is like a heavy blow-up. Kaiwan's eyes finally flashed a broken look. He spoke up and wanted to retort, but he couldn't even say a word. Because at this time, more students began to be suspicious, and some people shouted directly, Director, is the misunderstanding of the senior? You can tell me clearly. Yes, if you are innocent, why don't you explain it? At this moment, a cold voice came from behind the crowd. Yanting said it was right. These files are real and I can prove it. I turned around and saw that it turned out to be a dream. She was wearing simple sportswear and holding a small notebook in her hand. Her face was calm, but her eyes were calm, and she walked quietly to the front of the crowd. Dream? Why are you here? I was a little surprised, but I was happy. With her help, things would definitely be more smooth. I have been paying attention to this matter. There are many old files in the library that can help you verify the certificates in your hand. The dream point is to turn on the notebook in your hand and show it to everyone. There are records of the cooperation between the institute and the school that year, and there are documents signed by the founder. It mentioned the test plan. It is the choice of the so-called inheritor. Failed students are indeed the result of the failure of the test, and Director Kevin, as a guardian, is responsible for performing and obscuring all of this. I also found some target records from that year, which proved that Kevin had participated in the trial supervision many times, and even handled some failed by himself. As soon as this happened, the atmosphere in the whole audience exploded, and the eyes of classmates changed from suspicion to anger. Someone shouted directly, Director, this is too much. Isn't it a life to lose the life of a long time? Yes, you're still embarrassed to punish us for what we did. Kaiwan finally collapsed, his face turned white like paper, his head was covered in cold sweat, and his voice began to tremble. You, don't listen to them nonsense. I don't know what trials or misses are, they are all edited. I am innocent. Innocence? Director, please check this file yourself, look at this signature, and the certificate from the dreamer. How long can you be stubborn? Howard also stood up at this time, and his voice was full of fire. In the past few years, you have relied on your power to punish this. Whoever remembers it if you don't listen to it. Now, your true face is finally revealed. Those missed elder sisters, and their families, who will give them an explanation? Howard's words were like the last straw that crushed the captain. Kaiwan's body shook and finally couldn't hold back. He sat on the stone beside him, his eyes as empty as if he had lost his soul. He whispered, wanting to say something, but he couldn't even spit out a word, so he could only lower his head and let the surrounding fingers and controversy pierce it like a knife. Yanting, Howard, you are so awesome. You really dug out the truth. A classmate Shaoli, who usually works with us, came over and admired her face. I thought the missing story was a ghost story, but I didn't expect that it would be so dark behind me. The director has no face to see anyone. Yes, Yanting, you're absolutely doing this. Kaiwan punished us so hard, and now he's overturned the car. Another classmate also came over and gave me and Howard and I a thumbs up, with admiration in my eyes. As students gathered around them, the discussions became more and more rewards and support for us. Some even started to applaud and shouted, "Yanting is awesome and Howard is so popular." Howard and I looked at each other. Although we were so tired, we felt very happy. When everyone exposes Kaiwan's true face and makes him lose his authority, this feeling of slapping the face is so simple that it's not too satisfying. When Dreamer walked to me at this time, he said in a short voice, "Yanting, do well. I will help you sort out these files and certificates, and hand them over to the principal and relevant departments after you go back. I believe they will investigate this matter. The truth about the missing students will be revealed to the world." "Thank you, Sister Dreamer, if you hadn't helped you, this would have been so smooth," I said sincerely, and I was very grateful to her. Although she doesn't talk much, she always stands up at the critical moment and gives us the greatest support. "No thanks, this should be." Dream smiled, with a little relief in his eyes. "You and Howard are very brave. You have already given up when you changed to someone else. The group that the campus tells was finally untied by you." At this time, several teachers finally came back to the spirit and began to maintain order, allowing the classmates to scatter. At the same time, someone went to help Kaiwan up and prepared to take him back for investigation. Kaiwan lowered his head, without saying a word, as if he had completely collapsed, and he was as tall as usual. I looked at his back and felt mixed feelings in my heart. Over the years, he has relied on his power to bully students and hide the truth. Now he has always suffered a lot of consequences, but those missed elder sisters will never come back. "Yanting, we win." Howard patted my shoulder and grinned like a fool. "Kaiwan has done so. After he goes back, the principal will definitely deal with him. Maybe he will call the police. We are simply a campus hero in this wave." The truth is not true, but I replied with a smile, and my heart felt much more relaxed. From discovering that formula notebook, to the first trial in Blackstone Garden, to the shocking night of the Institute, the pressure of these days was finally released. Although there are still some traits that have not been explained, such as what the final plan of the founder is, at least, the truth about the missing students has been made public, and Kaiwan's dark hook cannot be hidden. At night, the campfire will be held as usual, but the atmosphere is 10 times hotter than the previous few days. Everyone sang and danced around the fire, laughing constantly, and sometimes someone came to me and Howard to rejoice, saying, "Thank you for revealing the truth and you are our idols." Howard and I sat next to the fire, watching everyone feel happy, and my heart is warm. A graduation trip was originally a simple memory, but it turned out to be such a shocking adventure, but in the end it was better than expected. "Yanting, what should I do after I go back? There is still a third problem in the notebook that I can't solve." Howard asked me in a low voice, glanced at his backpack, and there was the mysterious notebook inside. "Let's talk about it when you go back. The third estimate is related to the old laboratory. We will check it when the trip is over." I replied in a low voice, actually quite curious. Although Kaiwan fell, behind the campus's revelation, there are even bigger secrets waiting for us. The plan of the founder and the meaning of the inheritor, these questions are like a group of mystery, making people become more addicted to it the more they think about it. "Okay, I'm not afraid of anything when I'm hanging with you anyway." Howard grinned and picked up Kayleigh and clinked glasses with me. The fire reflected his face and the smiles of his classmates around me. I suddenly felt that at this moment, all the surprises and pressure were worth it. The graduation trip has not ended yet, but this adventure has become the most forgotten page in our youth. I looked down at my backpack and silently made up my mind. No matter what challenges there were before, Howard and I would go on together. On the last day of my graduation trip, the morning in Chingsong Valley was particularly calm. The sun shone through the trees and was on the tents of the dew-built campground, and the air was filled with the smell of the fire from the bonfire last night. The classmates packed their luggage in 2 places and were preparing to return. They all smiled reluctantly on their faces. After that, this was the last time that all the members went on a trip. After this day, everyone was going their separate ways. Howard and I sat outside the tent, drinking the last bottle of Kale, and our eyes glanced at the formula notebook in our backpack from time to time, and our hearts were filled with mixed feelings. At the bonfire last night, Kaiwan's true face was revealed, and the truth about the missing students was revealed to everyone, and the entire camp was blown up. The students went from their initial shock to their later anger to their final support and worship, and the ups and downs of their emotions were unforgettable. Kaiwan was taken away by several teachers and heard that he would be directly investigated by the principal and relevant departments after he went back. The identity of the guardian and the dark inside story of the trial were caused by him to drink these charges. The dream also helped a lot, sorted out the old files in the library and handed them over as a telegraph to ensure that this matter would not be easily suppressed. Yanting, we really got it done. Howard drank aloud, grinned, his eyes full of pride. Kaiwan, who usually punished us so hard, now I'm going to turn over the car. I was laughing in my dream last night, I was so happy. Don't just be happy, there's something I haven't finished. I patted my backpack and said in a low voice. There is still a third problem in the notebook. What is the final plan of the founder? We must figure it out, otherwise there will always be a knot in my heart. Howard was slightly lit, although he didn't say anything, but his eyes were also curious. The adventures of these few days have made us fall deeper and deeper. Although the truth has been revealed most of the time, the notebook is like a bottomless pit, and it always feels that there are even more explosive secrets hidden inside. At 10 o'clock in the morning, the guides blew the whistle and gathered. Everyone dragged their suitcases and boarded the bus to prepare for the return trip. Kaiwan didn't appear again. He heard that he was taken back to school in advance last night. The atmosphere in the camp became much lighter. Several teachers who were usually serious were talking and laughing to their classmates. Howard and I sat in the last row of the bus, pretending to be playing with our mobile phone, and actually took out the notebook and began to study the formula on the last page. The third aspect is that the map points to the school's old laboratory room. I pointed to a red circle on the notebook and said in a low voice, it seems that after the trip is over, we have to go back to the campus to explore it again. My dream said that the old laboratory room is the starting point and the end point, and the 80% of the secret of the founder is there. Okay, go back. Anyway, I've been here. I'm not willing to let it go. Howard said nothing about his face and patted his chest. At worst, I'll be caught again. We are now a campus hero. Who dares to punish us? I smiled and slammed my head, feeling a little uneasy. Although Kaiwan fell down, the creator's plan mentioned in the file always makes people feel that there is a bigger dark side behind it. However, it wasn't time to think too much now. The bus started for a few hours and finally returned to school in the afternoon. The campus is still the familiar campus, but the atmosphere is completely different from before the start. Everyone saw that our eyes were full of admiration. Some people even ran over to shake hands and said, Yanting, you are so awesome, you are avenged for the missed students. Howard, brother, admire. This feeling of being crowded with people was so refreshing, but Howard and I didn't stop for a long time and left after finding an excuse. Although the graduation trip ended, our adventure was not over yet. That night, after the dormitory was turned off, Howard and I sneaked out of the dormitory again and headed straight to the blocked old experiment room in the northwest corner of the campus. The campus was so quiet under the night that it was so quiet that the road lights emitted dimly yellow light, and the iron network column was still so old. We drove through the holes and came to the end of the experiment building. When I pushed the door of the green glass, there was still a musty smell inside. The ground was filled with broken glass and waste paper, the flashlight shone over the wall, and the tines on the wall were amazed by the old touch. Yanting, the notebook says that the third area is on the second floor underground. Howard reminded me in a low voice, and his eyes glanced around, and it was obviously still a little hairy. I clicked the head, flipped through the notebook, and found a hidden stair entrance according to the map and formula. I didn't pay attention before, but now I found a hidden door under the floor with a string of numbers engraved next to it. I calculated the password according to the formula, turned the small lock on the hidden door, and heard a click sound. The hidden door opened slowly, revealing a narrow staircase leading to the ground. It was pitch black below, and there was a cold wind blowing up. The trough is also the basement. Why is it always like this? Howard muttered, but he still followed me with his head. We walked down carefully. The stairs were steep and slippery. After walking about 10 levels, we finally arrived at a spacious underground space. This place is even older than the experiment room above, surrounded by iron racks and old equipment, and a huge iron box is placed in the center with symbols engraved on it, which is exactly the same as the one in the notebook. There's also an old computer next to the box. Although the screen is covered in dust, the power lights are still on, as if they are in a standby state. What's this thing? Is it still useful? Howard rushed over curiously and reached out to touch it. Don't be upset. I held him tight, flipped through the notebook, and found that the formula on the last page pointed to the iron box and computer, and wrote "Finally try to unlock the truth." I took a deep breath, and according to the formula, I entered a series of passwords to the turntable on the iron box. I only heard the sound. The box opened slowly, and there were actually a pile of old discs and a yellow letter. The envelope read to the rear. I picked up the letter and carefully opened it. There was a long letter written by the founder. Although the words were a little blurry, the content made people's skin numb. The letter wrote that he founded the school that year not only for education, but also for a secret experiment plan to remove the inheritor with extreme potential through trial selection and execution of a task that will transform humans' future. The failed students are trying to get a failed price. They are sent to a secret base for further remodeling. The guardians such as Kevin are responsible for keeping the truth in mind and ensuring that the plan is not exposed. But the founder began to regret it in his later years, and felt that the plan was too tolerant, so he sealed all the data here for future generations to reveal it and ended all of this. Yanting, this is too distorted. Howard's face turned pale after reading the letter. What inheritor, what transformation, it sounds like a science fiction film. Those missed students, what base have they been sent to? Don't worry, there's a computer. I gritted my teeth and inserted the disk in the iron box into the old computer. The screen lighted up, showing a bunch of encrypted files. I followed the last formula in the notebook to crack the password, and the file finally opened, with detailed records of the trial plan, including the whereabouts of the missing students. They were indeed sent to an overseas base, but 10 years ago, the base was closed due to financial problems and the students were dismissed. Although they were physically and mentally created, most of them were still alive, and there was even their current contact method in the file. They are still alive. My heart was shocked, and my hands were trembling with excitement. Although they have lived so dark, at least, they are still alive, which is the greatest comfort. There was also a record of the founder at the end of the file. I clicked on the playback and heard an old voice saying, "Looking at the end of this, please stop my mistakes. The trial plan ends here, and the school should return to the essence of education. Sorry for those children, I have no idea." The recording ended and the basement fell into a dead silence. Howard and I looked at each other and felt like my heart was hit hard. Although the founder's plan was crazy, at least he suddenly realized in his later years and left hope for an end. And we finally dug out all the truth. Yanting, we have to make this thing public and finally end this destructive plan. Howard gritted his teeth, his voice full of determination. It's a must. I clicked the head, took pictures of the disk, letters and files, and then carefully put them in, preparing to go back and hand them over to the dream, so that she could help deal with it. When we left the basement, it was almost dawn, and the first sunlight in the campus came down, making the broken experimental building no longer so terrifying. A few days later, the information was sorted out by the dream and handed over to the principal and the Ministry of Education. The founder's test plan was exposed in a short period of time, and all the relevant responsible persons, including Kaiwan, were subject to legal sanctions. The whereabouts of missing students were also made public. The school contacted their families and arranged psychological guidance and compensation. Although the pain in the past cannot be erased, at least, it is not better to be true than to be true. The old experiment room was permanently blocked, and the experiment plan was written into school history as a dark teaching to warn future generations. And Howard and I have become heroes in the eyes of all the teachers and students in the school because of revealing all these things. On the day of the graduation ceremony, the principal gave us a gift award for students. The audience was filled with thunder and the students' voices almost overturned the ceremony. During the speech, the president specifically mentioned, Yanting and Howard, with courage and wisdom, let the truth told by the campus be revealed to the world, let the missing chief sister be revealed, and let our school return to justice and peace. You are our most proud students. Yanting, are you happy? The whole school is expressing us. Howard stood beside me, wearing a graduation uniform, smiling so hard that his mouth couldn't fit, and his eyes were as bright as stars. It's so good. I replied to him with a smile, looking at the familiar face. My heart was warm. Although I was surprised these days, the results ended up being better than I thought. The truth is revealed, the story of the bad guys and the missing students is no longer an unsolved mystery, and we have become the protagonists of this legend. After the ceremony, Howard and Menu made a photo together under the apricot tree in the campus. This tree is a school's magazine, which witnesses the youth of countless students. Today's sunlight is particularly good, and the leaves are as golden as paintings. The dream was wearing a white dress and a gentle smile. Howard was still the same as a man-made man, smiling with a heartless smile on my shoulder. I was holding the formula notebook in my hand. Although it brought countless dangers, it also allowed us to complete this youth adventure. Come on, smile. 1, 2, 3. The photography classmate shouted, pressed the fast door, and a click sound, freezing this moment. I looked at the photos on the camera screen, and a feeling of reluctance suddenly surged in my heart. After a few days, everyone will go their separate ways. The youthful campus life is here to go, but this adventure, this photo, will always stay in the memory. Yanting, Howard, thank you. Dream looked at the photo and said in a low voice, with a hint of emotion in his eyes, if it weren't for you, this truth might have been buried in the darkness forever. Although I was only a little busy, I was really happy to be able to participate in all this. Sister Meng, what a little busy. Without the file you provided, how could we be so successful? Howard slapped and said with a smile, besides, this is the three of us who are fucking together, and no one is missing. I clicked the head and added, yes, Sister Dream, thank you. And Howard, if you hadn't been with me all the time, I wouldn't have been able to walk on this road. Show, what a stingy. Howard pretended to be disgusted, but the smile on the corner of his mouth could not be hidden. But seriously, Yanting, although he was scared to death for these few days, he was also very happy. The three of us smiled at each other and didn't say anything more. We just looked at the campus quietly, at the school running on the playground, at the lights lit up in the classroom, at the silver apricot tree swaying with wind. The time of youth is like this style, unable to grasp it, and it is gone, carrying our laughter and purity, and it flows away. A few days later, when I packed my luggage and prepared to leave the dormitory, I received a letter of thanks from the family of my lost school. The letter read, Student, thank you for revealing the truth, letting us know that the child is still alive, and also the sufferings of his past have made sense. You are our benefactor and the hero in his youth. After reading the letter, my nose felt sore, my eyes almost fell off, but my heart was more relieved. The truth is revealed and the pain is calmed down. This is the biggest meaning of our adventure. When I walked out of the dormitory building, Howard was already waiting for me at the door. He held 2 bottles of Kale in his hand and threw over a bottle with a smile. Yanting, let's go, the new road is still ahead. If you have any adventures in the future, remember to call me, we are the best tool. It's a must. I took Kale, touched him, and walked towards the school together. The sun is on its body, and every corner of the campus is filled with memory. The graduation trip, the campus retelling, the formula book, these experiences are like a movie, flashing through the brain. From today on, we are no longer students in this school, but this youth, this adventure, will always be engraved in our hearts. All the secrets told in the campus have been revealed, the stories of missing students have been revealed, the dark plan of the founder has been permanently sealed, and Howard and I have also remained in the history of this school as heroes. See again, my youth. Goodbye, my campus. The road ahead is still very long, but with this memory, I am not afraid of anything.